Magandang umaga, ito ang News TV Live. Magsasagawa ng briefing ang Senate Committee on Local Government kaugnay ng draft ng Bangsamoro Basic Law. Ito ay pakikinggan ng Senado, ang negotiating panel at iba pang may kinalaman ukol sa BLL. Panoorin po natin ito.
Members of the Commission, Commissioner Ahmad Sakam, Commissioner Timuay Melanio Ulama, Commissioner Ibrahim Ali, Commissioner Abdullah Kamlian, also together with Attorney Shea Elijah Dumama Alba and Attorney Lanang Ali Jr. For the panel chair for peace negotiations with the MILF, Professor Miriam Coronel Ferrer, together with Secretary Senen Bakani. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming and welcome to the Senate. I had requested for this briefing for for those of us who have not been able to receive copies of the organic law as it has been proposed or has been drafted, for the information and enlightenment of not only the members of the committee but of course also that of the general public. This is so important a measure that I believe the discussion should not be limited to those of us in the Senate or in the House of Representatives who are directly involved in the drafting of this bill. But I think that the discussion and debate should go out to the general populace, seeing as any results that any success that we garner here by passing this measure will be of a beneficial effect not only to not only to the proposed Bangsamoro, but also to all of the Filipino populace. And that's why, again, it pays to be very well informed. So, without further ado, we can proceed with the briefing. I will yield the floor to Secretary Deles. Secretary Deles, if you would like to proceed.
Good morning. Good morning to the chair and the honorable members of the committee. Again, we thank the Senate that they have allowed time for the discussion of the bill on the Bangsamoro Basic Law, even though budget hearing is happening. That indicates to us how important this is, and that indicates to us the intent of the Senate as well as the House of Representatives to not waste time on examining this bill, on discussing this bill. As I have informed the committee chair, we are in a way what will happen in this briefing will in a way be a milestone also, because as we had communicated and Mr. Iqbal will also put forward in his opening remarks that there will only be one presentation, because it is very clear to the two parties that we are on the same platform. We work together very hard on the completion of the draft Bangsamoro Basic Law, and therefore the presentation that will be done by Mr. Iqbal is also the presentation that is being put forward by government. So we will not say very much more, Your Honor. I think the importance of this bill and the law to be passed to this government as an important pillar of the reform agenda has been made clear over and over again. This is on the top of the list that was given to both houses of Congress of the legislative measures that the executive was turned over to the legislature. And it is in this light that we again convey our commitment and our readiness to be present to the Senate, to the committee in every way that the committee will want to happen. So Your Honor, it is the Bangsamoro Transition Commission with the chair, Mr. Iqbal, that will be doing the presentation.
Thank you, Secretary Deles. Yes, Chairman Iqbal, if you would.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr., head of the Committee on Local Government, for allowing me to make a short message. Before the formal presentation on the Bangsamoro Basic Law, I would like to make an opening statement here, a very brief one. Of course, my courtesy to Secretary Teresita Ging Deles, my esteemed colleague in the Government Peace Panel, Professor Miriam Coronel Ferrer, my fellow commissioners of the Bangsamoro Transition Commission, especially Ambassador Sakam, former Secretary Senin Bacani of the GPH Peace Panel, other guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to address the esteemed members of the Senate and talk about what is very important to us, establishment of the Bangsamoro. Why does the establishment of the Bangsamoro matter? Why should we build the Bangsamoro? This is important because establishment of the Bangsamoro will end the long-standing conflict that has been the scourge of our people. The conflict has caused untold pain and misery. It has brought poverty and insecurity to our people. It has cost thousands of lives. Let us end this situation. Let peace be our lasting legacy. Every person has a right to live a happy and meaningful life. Let us grant this right to our peoples in the Bangsamoro. Life is meant to be lived in freedom and in pursuit of meaning and significance. Instead, the conflict has caused our people to live in fear and in want. Today, we have a singular opportunity to end suffering, poverty, illiteracy, impunity, and lawlessness. Let us work hard to make this happen. Let peace be our lasting legacy. But there is more. The Bangsamoro will not only liberate the Bangsamoro people from insecurity and poverty, it will also build the country. It will make the Philippines whole. For the longest time, the Bangsamoro have been kept at the margins of Philippine national life. The Bangsamoro will grant us the opportunity to participate as real, active citizens of this country. The Bangsamoro will also strengthen the stability of this country and will be our best antidote against rising radicalism, as it will show that there is space for the Bangsamoro in the Philippines. The Bangsamoro will also spur this country's development, as it will become an economic hub in an area adjacent to Malaysia, Indonesia, and Brunei. With peace that the Bangsamoro will bring, there will be more investment, more jobs, more education, and more opportunities, not just for the Bangsamoro, but for the whole country as well. Lastly, the Bangsamoro will also strengthen our geopolitical status in Asia. Whereas before our country was divided, now we are one. Those opposed to the peace in the Bangsamoro will claim that the Bangsamoro Basic Law is unconstitutional, will divide the country, and is merely a ploy for independence on the part of the MILF. The Constitution, among others, is a toolkit for solving intractable social problems. There is enough flexibility in the Constitution that will accommodate real solutions to ending the conflict in Mindanao. As long as there are men and women of goodwill that seek peace, the Constitution will never be a hindrance. Instead of dividing the country, the Bangsamoro will unite the country. What divides a country is neglect, lack of respect, and lack of appreciation of diversity. What unites a country is respect and celebration of the richness of our different histories, cultures, and faiths. This is what the Bangsamoro brings. The Bangsamoro is our best insurance against independence. If the Bangsamoro works to bring peace, development, and security to the people, then independence becomes less attractive. people will only live a relationship when they are treated badly. But if they are treated well, there will be no reason to aspire to be independent. Look at the result of the referendum in Scotland, where the no vote for independence outvoted the yes for independence. The same applies to the Bangsamoro. Once again, we would like to say that we have given the best years of our lives to securing a better future for our children, a future that is peaceful, secure, and prosperous. Given the circumstances, we would gladly do it all over again. This is our solemn commitment. But now, we have a chance where our children need not make that kind of sacrifice again. Help us make that happen. Let us build a future where our children will spend the best years of their lives pursuing their highest dreams of peace and prosperity. Let peace be our lasting legacy. Finally, I trust the collective wisdom of the members of Congress, both in the Senate and the lower house, to pass a good legislation in the form of this proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman, for your opening statement. If you would like to proceed now with the briefing.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would request Attorney Lai Duamba to make the actual presentation.
Before we proceed, I would just like to recognize, I failed to recognize her earlier, Attorney Ana Tarhata Basman, the GPH legal head. Please, Chairman, please go ahead.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum and good morning, Senator Marcos. We are here to present a brief outline of the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Next slide, please. The first slide has been duly elaborated on by Chairman Mohagar Iqbal, the chairman of the Bangsamoro Transition Commission. What is in it for us? Why do we need to pass the Bangsamoro Basic Law? The first is, it will end the long-standing suffering of the Bangsamoro people. A lot of conflicts and hatred and animosity had built up across time between these people, the Bangsamoro people, and the government. We need a Bangsamoro Basic Law to make the Bangsamoro people feel that they are part of this country. This will enable us to foster unity and harmony and integrate the Bangsamoro into the Philippine society. It will also usher in economic development, bring jobs, give jobs to people, make them educated, and contribute to the progress of our country. And it will act as a shield against rising radicalism, because we need a lovely and peaceful place where people feel safe and important. Next slide, please. Now, the Bangsamoro Basic Law has 18 articles and 242 sections. As you can see, these are the articles, the contents of the Bangsamoro Basic Law. Next, please. The preamble of the Bangsamoro, as you can see, it reflects that it is within the bounds of the Constitution, in consonance with the Constitution and the universally accepted principles of human rights, liberty, justice, democracy, and the norms and standards of international law reflected of our system of life, prescribed by our faith, and in harmony with our customary laws, cultures, and traditions. Why do we need to establish a Bangsamoro political entity? The purpose is to establish a political entity that will provide for the basic structure of government in recognition of justness and legitimacy of the cause of the Bangsamoro people and their aspiration to chart sorry, I don't have my glasses, their political future through a democratic process that will secure their identity and posterity and allow for meaningful self-governance. This embodies the right to self-determination and self-governance. Next, please. We go on to the key issues in the Bangsamoro Basic Law. The proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law, first is about the territory. Second is inclusiveness. Third, security. Fourth is revenue generation and wealth sharing. The fifth is the role of the indigenous peoples. And the sixth is Sharia law. The Bangsamoro government adopts a ministerial or parliamentary form of government. Under Article 4, Section 2, the Bangsamoro government shall be parliamentary. Its political system is democratic, allowing its people to freely participate in the political processes within its territory. Legislative authority is vested in 60 members of the parliament, 50% of whom are representatives of political parties elected through a system of proportional representation, 40% are district representatives, and 10% reserved seats and sectoral representatives. They will serve on a 3-year term and no more than 3 consecutive terms. The titular head will be the wali, who will only perform ceremonial functions. Executive authority is vested in the Bangsamoro cabinet. The executive function and authority shall be exercised by the cabinet ministers, who shall be headed by a chief minister. The composition is our chief minister, the deputy chief minister, and other ministers. The chief minister shall be elected by a majority of votes from among the members of the parliament, and the deputy chief minister is appointed by the chief minister from among the elected members of the parliament, and the other ministers shall be from majority of the members of the parliament. We move on to the intergovernmental relations mechanism. The Intergovernmental Relations Mechanism, or IGR, is established at the highest levels that will coordinate and harmonize the relationship between the central government and the Bangsamoro government to resolve issues and disputes on intergovernmental relations through regular consultations and continuing negotiations in a non-adversarial manner, and all issues that are unresolved in the Intergovernmental Relations Mechanism shall be elevated to the President through the Chief Minister. It is also worth noting that there is a Bangsamoro Congress, a Bangsamoro Parliament, and Philippine Congress Forum that will meet and regularly to tackle issues on legislation.
Could you expand on that? Because that is a feature that's not well understood. What exactly will be the function of that body? And because it to some quarters, it sounds that the question of sovereignty is immediately comes up, because if both the Bangsamoro government and the Republic of the Philippines are treated on an equal standing, then of course we are saying it might be interpreted as a sovereignty within, or rather a state within a state. So perhaps you could what we just mentioned, if you could expand on that, just for our understanding, please, Attorney.
Okay. We'll ask Attorney Basman to elaborate.
Yes, with your permission.
Yes, of
Senator
course.
Marcos.
Please go ahead.
We are one panel, Mr. Senator.
All right, then I leave it to you to decide who will answer any questions.
Yes, Senator. The Bangsamoro Parliament and the Philippine Congress Forum is meant to provide a venue for both legislative bodies, not necessarily equating the two, the one being a national legislative body and the other being of regional status, to enable them to harmonize legislations that they may enact. So one clear example is the devolved power for the Bangsamoro Parliament to create, abolish, merge local government units. And we know from Supreme Court decisions and the Constitution that only Congress can expand its membership. And any enactment of the Bangsamoro Parliament that might have an effect on the powers of the National Congress will have this forum for discussion.
So I think the direction that the questions will be going to will be if there are contradictory, as you call them, enactments by the Bangsamoro legislature and the Philippine Congress. This is to be negotiated, or what is the what law will be followed?
I think, sir, the forum provides the venue to prevent contradiction, because
Yes,
even before the passage of
But there will be instances where the Philippine Congress will simply not. I hearken it to a situation between an LGU, for example, and the national government. Any ordinance that is passed by any Sanggunian at any point which is in conflict with any laws passed by Congress, immediately it is well recognized that the laws, any ordinances passed by an LGU cannot be contradicting any laws passed by Congress. How will that mechanism work when it comes to the enactments of the Bangsamoro legislature?
I think, Your Honor, the regular mechanisms to determine the validity of the enactment of the Bangsamoro Parliament, if in fact it goes beyond the legislative powers granted under the BBL, will apply. What is being provided in this forum, the legislative branches, to enable them to, at the first instance, prevent that kind of a contradiction. So the regular mechanism to should we say harmonize or to remove the contradiction between a national legislation and a legislation enacted by the Bangsamoro Parliament will still apply.
So how if the conflict cannot be resolved, how will it then be treated, and how will it be handled?
Ask the chair.
Yes, Professor.
Your Honor, just a little background on
Yes,
the history of that provision, which can also be found in the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro and has now been translated as a provision in the proposed law, Bangsamoro Basic Law. One of the clear concern was precisely as pointed out by Attorney Basman, was the power to create local government units, including provinces. But as we know, in the Constitution, each province is required to have representation in Congress. So any creation of a new province would necessitate creation of a congressional seat, or a slot representation in the National Congress. So concretely, it might work in the manner of simultaneously setting off the process of providing for a congressional seat for what would eventually be constituted as a province in the Bangsamoro, so that when a province is so affected by an act of parliament of the Bangsamoro government, then there will be that congressional seat that will be available. Some of the initial possibilities that may arise immediately is when there are in fact other areas that might join the Bangsamoro government as a result of the plebiscite and would require an additional a province, the creation of an additional province, and correspondingly some kind of a as well as a congressional seat. So some kind of a simultaneous action can be precipitated through that forum.
Very well. I'm sure there will be many more questions, especially on this. But as I promised our guests, we would allow them to get from the beginning to the end of their briefing. So, Attorney Alba, if you would like to proceed.
Okay, so the next slide is on the proposed Bangsamoro territory. We highlight that the proposed Bangsamoro territory shall remain as a part of the Philippines. The present
I would like to acknowledge the arrival of Senator Coco Pimentel.
The proposed Bangsamoro territory will comprise the present geographical area of the Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, the 6 municipalities in the province of Lanao del Norte, Baloi, Munay, Nunungan, Pantar, Tagoloan, and Tangkal, the 39 barangays in the municipalities of Cabacan, Carmen, Alyosan, Pigcawayan, Pikit, and Midsayap in North Cotabato, who voted yes in the 2011 plebiscite, the cities of Cotabato and
Could we go back one slide? You have included 6 municipalities, 39 barangays, and 2 cities. How will they will
Papatuloy po ang isinasagawang briefing sa Senado kaugnay pa rin ng Bangsamoro Basic Law o BBL at nagsasagawa nga po ng briefing ang panel na kumakatawan sa MILF at kanilang pinapaliwanag isa-isa punto por punto yung nilalaman ng Bangsamoro Basic Law na hinihiling nga ng Malacanang na maipasa ng Kongreso sa lalong madaling panahon. Isa po sa mga itinanong nitong si Senator Bongbong Marcos ay kaugnay nga dun sa posibleng conflict sa batas na ipinapasa ng Bangsamoro doon naman sa pangkalahatang batas ng gobyerno ng Pilipinas. Panoorin po natin ito.
they do not receive a share from the Bangsamoro government.
There is
also.
yes.
They will also receive another
It's not
form
actually
of...
an era.
No, it's not called IRA when it comes from the Bangsamoro government. But we've established that they will receive their IRA share, for example, from the national government. Will they receive further funding from the Bangsamoro government?
Okay.
Yes, Your Honor, they may certainly, because the automatic appropriation to the Bangsamoro as well as the Social Development Fund is supposed to develop the entire Bangsamoro area. So based on a Bangsamoro development plan, they may also.
Okay, what happens to the if there's a Bangsamoro development plan and there's a provincial development plan or a regional development plan? How again do we resolve those the inevitable differences between those two plans? Because the Bangsamoro is concerned with this particular area, the regular provincial development and regional development councils will presumably have an overall plan for the provinces and the cities and the municipalities under which these other LGUs reside. So maybe just give us an idea how the concept is. I know that the details are not yet hammered out, but the concept on how this power, it will be a power sharing really system is going to function. Professor, if you could
Yes, Your
enlighten
Honor.
us.
I think in the immediate period after the results of the plebiscite, these new areas that are outside of the ARM and currently belong to provinces that are not part of the ARM will exist for a temporary period as geographic areas. And that kind of transition, where in fact they will get their era, whether from the original province or eventually, will probably happen until such time that they are constituted as part of provinces of the Bangsamoro. And that will be done by an act of a legislative action of the Bangsamoro Parliament. So until such time that happens, then they will still effectively belong to the provinces where they are currently located.
In terms of the administration, if an ordinance is passed by a province in which one of the areas that you have identified falls in, is that the local law that they need to follow, or do they only follow Bangsamoro law as enacted by the legislature?
Effectively, they are already part. There are local governments that are already part of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority, which is the immediate body that will be constituted until such time everything is regularized by through that act of constituting them as part of provinces or municipalities of existing territory that is part of the current ARM.
I guess the non-contiguity is where the problem arises. But again, I'll just allow, please carry on. Thank you.
This is a picture, an illustration of the Bangsamoro waters and the zones of joint cooperation. So the Bangsamoro waters run from 22.224 kilometers from the nautical miles. These shall form part of the Bangsamoro waters, and the zones of joint cooperation for the Sulusi and Moro Gulf. Okay, next. We talk about inclusiveness. How inclusive is the Bangsamoro Basic Law? We share our successes as discussed by Chairman Iqbal in his speech earlier with all of the stakeholders, whether they be Bangsamoro or non-Bangsamoro. Just to mention that the comprehensive agreement on the Bangsamoro also recognizes all the gains in the peace pacts previously entered into by the government and the MNLF. And we reach out to all the stakeholders through public consultations, conferences, and conventions. We have civil society organizations that we have partnered with to get our messages across the grassroots. And as you can see, we have reached this far in this endeavor, and we hope that the people of this nation will recognize the importance of this piece of legislation. Next. So there is going to be a Bangsamoro police who shall be still part of the Philippine National Police. The Bangsamoro police will be the law enforcement, will take charge of law enforcement and maintenance of peace and order in the Bangsamoro. And as you can see, the Bangsamoro Police Board is also still part of the National Police Commissioner NAPOLCOM, and the NAPOLCOM shall ensure that the Bangsamoro Police Board performs its powers and functions within the bounds of its authority. Can you go back, please? A section on public order and safety provides that the Bangsamoro government shall have primary responsibility over public order and safety within the Bangsamoro. There shall be cooperation and coordination between the central government and the Bangsamoro government through the intergovernmental relations mechanism. There is hereby created the Bangsamoro Police, which shall be organized, maintained, supervised, and utilized for the primary purpose of law enforcement and maintenance of peace and order in the Bangsamoro. It shall be part of the Philippine National Police. The Bangsamoro Police shall be professional, civilian in character, regional in scope, effective and efficient in law enforcement, fair and impartial, free from partisan political control, and accountable under the law for its actions. It shall be responsible both to the central government and the Bangsamoro government and to the communities it serves.
A quick question. On the chain of command of the police, will they be under the direct control of the chief PNP? How will that work? Do they receive? Can they be ordered, for example, by the regional commander or the chief PNP to carry out some duties, or will that have to go through the police board? The police board, which is a member of the NAPOLCOM.
Yeah, Your Honor, the command and structure of the Bangsamoro police with the PNP will still be intact.
So under the chain of command, their commander, their ultimate commander will be the chief PNP still. If an order is issued by the chief PNP to a member of the Bangsamoro police, are they mandated? Is it their duty to follow that order, or do they take orders from the Bangsamoro Police Board or some other entity?
Your Honor, it's going to be shared power, just like in the exercise of, which is somewhat similar to the situation now with other local governments, where local governments actually exercise operational control and supervision as well over the police force under its command. In this case, the provincial police office. But at the higher level of the region, certainly the regional director is still under the chain of command of the chief police, being part and parcel of the Philippine National Police. But at the same time, the regional government, through the chief minister, also exercises operational control and supervision over the regional police force. So there's that kind of a power, some kind of shared powers.
Okay, but for example, in the example, as to use your example, in an LGU, of course, the local, it's like the chain of command is very clear, and the ultimate commander is still the chief PNP. There is no such thing as shared power with anyone, as long it is the commander's power to issue orders to his people. How will that be different in this sharing of power that you conceived?
Your Honor, we can assume that when police matters that have implications beyond Bangsamoro, certainly that kind of command, chain of command will be exercised by the chief of police, as it will now involve other provincial police and regional police offices. For instance, a criminal element that is moving from Zamboanga City to inside the Bangsamoro, like Basilan or Maguindanao, then there will be that kind of an imperative on the part of the regional, the chief of police to directly order the regional police chief of the Bangsamoro. But we can assume for most parts on matters of public order and safety that is within the Bangsamoro, the chief minister will be exercising significant operational control and supervision over the police.
It's not only in terms of the law enforcement, but also in terms of the adoption of policy. For example, we are hearing about so-called lifestyle checks, let's say for the PNP. Let us say that that's approved. Will that apply, for example, to also the Bangsamoro police? It's policy rather than that's a chain of command, the power sharing issues. But in the adoption of policy, will they wear the same uniform? Will they have the same armaments? Will they follow the same procedures as laid out in the standard operating procedures of the Philippine National Police? Will they be? I'm just trying to clarify exactly, because power sharing is for such an important issue. is rather vague in terms of the uniformed services. It is not something that the uniformed services are accustomed to doing, because the chain of command is generally very, very clear. So how will this work? Because it is a different concept.
The relevant national agencies say dealing with firearms, explosives, and so on, acquisition of firearms, this will be within the single organization of the PNP. The same national laws will apply, the same firearms law will apply in the Bangsamoro, but as you, Senator, you pointed out, as for operational control and supervision, for addressing law enforcement issues, that's where the Chief Minister will be exercising more direct powers over the regional police. But otherwise, on the matter of uniform, it's very possible that they can have a special insignia to represent that they come from they are part of the Bangsamoro Regional Police Force, but otherwise, the badge, I think it's only one badge that is being provided for all members.
Well, that's
of the
common
PNP
practice
National
to
Police.
designate the unit that you belong to. Is I don't think that's terribly unusual. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm hearing that on operational matters, it will be the Chief Minister who will ultimately decide.
Deployment of forces, say when there is a critical situation in one province, the Chief Minister can ask the police to deploy people to go to these areas. So these are really operational aspects that will require that kind of, in keeping with the powers of the Chief Minister, also to be primarily responsible for the public order and safety.
So the Chief Minister is operationally their commander of the Bangsamoro Police.
He has supervisory and regulatory management powers over the police, but the chain of command still flows from the PNP. The PNP still issues the command and direction comes from the PNP. For instance, sir, when the promotion issues will arise, these are all part and parcel of the personnel system inside the Philippine National Police.
Can I?
Chairman Iqbal.
Yeah. I think the best way to answer the question, Your Honor, is go to the text itself. Because the question has an answer in the text itself. And if I be permitted to read, I will read the exact section. It's Section 8, Powers of the Chief Minister over the Bangsamoro Police. The Chief Minister shall have the following powers over the Bangsamoro Police: to act as Deputy of the National Police Commission in the Bangsamoro and as ex officio chair of the Bangsamoro Police Board, to select the head of the police and his deputies. I have to take note of the use of the word select, not appointment, but just select. It is recommendatory in character. Then letter C, to exercise operational control and supervision and disciplinary powers over the Bangsamoro Police. And then letter D, to employ or deploy the elements of and assign or reassign the Bangsamoro Police through the Bangsamoro Police Director. The Bangsamoro Police Director shall not countermand the order of the Chief Minister unless it is a violation of the law. To oversee the preparation and implementation of the integrated Bangsamoro Public Safety Plan. To impose, after due notice and summary hearings of the citizens' complaint, administrative penalties on personnel of the Bangsamoro Police, except those appointed by the President. And letter G, do everything necessary to promote widespread support for the Bangsamoro Police by residents of the Bangsamoro.
There is on paragraph D, the statement, the Bangsamoro Police Director shall not countermand the order of the Chief Minister unless it is in violation of the law. Can the Chief PNP countermand the order of the Chief Minister issued to the Bangsamoro Police? I'm just trying to determine again, because the power sharing, what exactly is that balance of power in the power sharing?
Yes, Your Honor. In principle, yes.
In
Well, yes. Yes, because the Chief Minister also gets his powers as a member of the Regional Police Board. So he himself is subject to the NAPOLCOM policy making, because the Regional Police Board is part of NAPOLCOM.
Yes, I understand. So, again, to repeat the question, very simple, I think, is because it's a test of exactly what the power sharing is. Can the Chief PNP countermand an order that the Chief Minister has issued to his police force?
In his appraisal of a situation, he can actually issue such an order.
He can.
And there will be conflict, but that could be settled eventually as to which order was really more appropriate for the occasion. But otherwise...
So it's not an order per se. It needs to be, it will have to be resolved with the Chief Minister's order. How does it work exactly?
Chief PNP, through his own powers, over a subordinate official can also make an assertion on operational matters which may conflict with the powers of the Chief Minister. And this has happened several times as well in other local governments. And of course, we would hope that the matter could be discussed and resolved amicably, but otherwise it can also create
in the case of the local governments, it's very clear. The chain of command is very clear. Although there might be a disagreement in opinion as to the proper deployment of forces, eventually the order of CRAME supersedes all others. So again, maybe this will be something that we could discuss further in the future. But to stay close to my promise, please let me allow you to go through your briefing. Thank you.
Next slide, please. On revenue generation and wealth sharing, the 100% of taxes that had been transferred to the Bangsamoro shall pertain to the Bangsamoro. What are these taxes? Capital gains tax, donors tax, estate tax, and documentary stamps tax. 100% of the taxes already devolved to the ARM will pertain to the Bangsamoro, and the 25% of the national taxes collected in the Bangsamoro will go to the government, while 75% thereof shall go to the Bangsamoro government.
Okay, so it's clearly very different from the arrangement from regular LGUs. Because the LGUs have, if we could go back one slide, please. For example, national taxes collected in the local, in an LGU are all remitted directly to the national government, and LGUs then wait for the IRA share of each LGU. In this case, kasi ang sharing sa IRA is 60-40 in local governments. Ito, baliktad. 25 to the national government and 75 to the Bangsamoro government. How also will that, will those, like the IRA share of local governments is calculated from 3 years previous, and it's then downloaded to the local government unit. Is this a direct remittance, or will it go through the same process?
Your Honor, with your permission, if I may clarify the issue.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
The issue on the 3 years before really refers to the manner of calculating the block grant, similar with the manner of calculating the 40% IRA share of the local government units. The benchmark of 3 years before is used. In this case, we're not really talking of the same benchmark in terms of the 75% to be remitted to the Bangsamoro. As they come in, for example, for last year, there will be no time lag. In fact, what is even being foreseen is at some point in time, hopefully there can be a collection office of the BIR purely for the Bangsamoro, so that whatever is collected there is already retained rather than remitted to the central government first. But it will be on a current basis, Your Honor. It won't be computed based on the 3 years before benchmark.
So it will be a direct remittance.
Yes, Your Honor.
So whatever taxes national are collected in the Bangsamoro, 75% will be directly remitted to the Bangsamoro government, and 25% will then go to the national government.
Yes, Your Honor.
So
Eventually, what may even happen is, at some point in time, hopefully, if the taxes can be collected within the Bangsamoro, just for the Bangsamoro to retain the 75% and then remit the 25%.
That's what I'm hearing. That is the mechanism. That hindi na nga direct remittance. They'll actually only forward the 25% to the national government. And since the local government, the Bangsamoro government, is doing the collection, then they will just withhold the 75% for the Bangsamoro government funding.
Yes, Your Honor, that's right.
All right.
Your Honor, if I may just
Yes,
add.
Attorney Basman.
Yes, this arrangement for the sharing of 25% and 75% for the national taxes collected within the Bangsamoro, between the Bangsamoro government and the central government, is going to be an arrangement that will be unique in the Bangsamoro. And it's actually taking off from the existing arrangement between the autonomous regional government and the central government, whereby the Organic Act of ARM provides for a sharing of 70% and 30%. So it's actually an enhancement of the existing arrangement with the ARM regional government.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Attorney Alba, please proceed.
Okay. Next slide. On the sharing in the revenues from the exploitation, development, and utilization of natural resources, for non-metallic minerals, 100% shall pertain to the Bangsamoro government. For metallic minerals, such as gold, silver, copper, 75% shall go to the Bangsamoro government and 25% to the central government. And for fossil fuels and uranium, 50% to the government, central government, and 50% to the Bangsamoro government. Other sources of funds. Next slide. We have the annual block grant, where the share of the Bangsamoro in the national internal revenue is equivalent to 4% of the national internal revenue collection less the era of the LGUs. And there shall also be a special development fund, as raised by Secretary Deles, for the rehabilitation and development purposes. The amount of 7 billion for the first year and 10 billion paid out over 5 years shall be provided to the Bangsamoro government.
So to just clarify the first paragraph, the 4% annual block grant will be taken from the 60% of the national share of the IRA. So, bali ang national share magiging 56%, 4% Bangsamoro, and 40% all the other LGUs of the Philippines. Okay, thank you.
Okay, next.
40% for all LGUs, including those in the Bangsamoro. Tama yan, ano?
Okay, next slide. On the role of indigenous peoples, there shall be representation in the Bangsamoro Transition Authority and in the interim government of the Indigenous Peoples Affairs. There shall be 2 reserved seats in the Bangsamoro Parliament, a membership in the Council of Leaders, and the Parliament shall create an appropriate office or ministry for IPs, which shall be part of the Bangsamoro Cabinet.
On a related question, actually, this is something I wanted to ask earlier. In the definition of the Bangsamoro peoples, I'm sorry to take you back to the first part of the it defines the Bangsamoro peoples as those who are native to the identified area of Bangsamoro during the colonization. The question, so that first of all, how do we determine that? Number one, because it's a related issue to the indigenous peoples. And secondly, what's the status of people who moved into the Bangsamoro area since colonization? There are many Filipinos who have moved from other parts of the Philippines to what is now going to be the Bangsamoro. Since then, what are they part of the Bangsamoro? Are they defined as part of the Bangsamoro people?
Your Honor, it's a long history to tell, but I'll make it very brief, just to provide context to the question of Your Honor. The word Moro was first used by the Spaniards when they encountered Raja Sulaiman and Raja Lacandula in Manila. Because Manila then was populated by two peoples, the Moros, who are Muslims, and then what we call that term in Indios. Meaning, the term Moro was originally used to describe the Muslims in Manila. And then throughout the more than 300 years of warfare between Spain and the Moros, the term Moro was consistently used. And it is basically a religious term, because when you say Moros, they are Muslims. When the Americans came, of course there were wars between the Americans and the Moros. And they organized the Moro province. And the Moro province was composed of 5 districts: Zamboanga, Sulu, Lanao, Cotabato, and Davao. And more than 90% of the population of the Moro province, which was made of 5 districts, were Muslims or Moros and indigenous peoples. Why did we adopt the term Bangsamoro? Was it an invention of the Moro National Liberation Front? No, it was not an invention of the Moro National Liberation Front. It was called from a petition on February 24, 1924 in Zamboanga City, signed by all the major leaders of the Moros, wherein they said that because the Moros at that time were against the grant of independence, but the Americans decided that the Moros would be part of the Philippines in the grant of independence in 1946. But as early as 1924, the Moros were already protesting to be included in the future Bangsamoro and in the future Republic of the Philippines. So they said that 50 years after this petition, which was in 1924, then the Moros would be given a chance to determine their political status. And they wanted that they would be called a Moro nation. And that is the origin of the word Bangsamoro, Moro nation. In other words, originally the word Bangsamoro includes the indigenous peoples, because they were the inhabitants during the time of conquest and colonization. So originally they were part of the Moros, because when the Moro province was organized, they were part of the Moro province, the Moros and the indigenous peoples. So as to the migrants in Mindanao, I think when we use the term Bangsamoro, because they were not original inhabitants of Mindanao, because the Christian settlers in Mindanao only came there in 1913 during the Americans regime, but most of the migrants in Mindanao came later, especially when there was an act in the Commonwealth in 1935, when there was that act called Quirino-Recto Colonization Act, and that was the beginning of wholesale migration of people from Luzon and Visayas to Mindanao. But what is important here, Your Honor, is that although by identity, the migrants are not identified as Bangsamoro, but the basic rights are extended to them. So that's my answer to your question, Your Honor.
So those who have since moved to what is now being defined as Bangsamoro will not be recognized as Bangsamoro people.
Except if they decide to be identified, because it is in
By
the
self-ascription.
proposed Bangsamoro Basic Law that a Bangsamoro can be by self-ascription or by ascription. If they want to be called as such, then I think they can
Patuloy po ang
be
briefing
filed.
ng Senado kaugnay sa Bangsamoro Basic Law at ilan nga pong punto ang binusisi nitong si Senador Bongbong Marcos. Kabilang na po dyan yung pag-harmonize at prevention ng contradiction sa pagitan ng batas na pinapasa ng Bangsamoro Parliament versus yun namang ipinapasa ng Philippine Congress. At binusisi rin niya yung sino ba raw ang may kapangyarihan sa Bangsamoro Police, ang chief ba ng PNP ng Pilipinas o yung Chief Minister ba ng Bangsamoro. At ganun din, tinanong din kanina nitong si Senador Marcos kung ano ang mananaig, yung bang Bangsamoro Development Plan o yung plano ng gobyerno sa level ng Provincial at Regional Development Plan. At kanina nga po ay tinatanong din ng Senador kung ano ang saklaw nito. Ito ba ay nakapaloob din o magbebenepisyo rin yung mga hindi Bangsamoro at hindi mga Muslim na nakatira doon naman sa mga lugar na sakop ng Bangsamoro. Tutok lang dito sa GMA News TV para oras-oras alam mo. Ako po si Sandra Aguinaldo. Magandang umaga po.